Toastmasters program and also share with you the vital features which make Toastmasters such an excellent business partner for any organization. So please give a warm welcome to past international president of Toastmasters International, distinguished Toastmaster, Pat Johnson.
Thank you so much, District 71, and for your introduction, Madam's Club Growth Director. It's my pleasure to be with you today in District 71 and also to speak to partners or potential partners within your corporate world locally. As was mentioned, I come to this topic because I sat in that corner office and was responsible for learning and development in the corporate world throughout my professional career. And as I progressed through that career and the responsibilities of meeting the training needs of all our employees corporately, I realized how many times that the Toastmasters curriculum actually intersected with the training needs that were identified globally in our organization. I also realized that our organization didn't understand how the Toastmasters program could potentially work because it was very different than the majority of training that we would bring in-house for our employees or send employees out to attend. For example, the majority of training that we did and that was seen to meet the needs of our employees historically was what we call bums in seats, where we would send people to a course. They would spend 1, 2, maybe even a whole week in a classroom, come back, file their materials away and go back to work. And there was little change because it was a knowledge transfer versus a skill-based learning. And a lot of the skills that we needed in the corporation that were identified as training needs were skill-based, which we all know that you have knowledge in your head, but then you must practice and apply that knowledge to actually build the skills so that you can perform at a specific level. And that's the secret sauce of the Toastmasters program, that we are a skill building program. So I want to share with you some of the, first of all, the transferable skills as was mentioned, and then some of the things that I've discovered over years in putting together Toastmasters programs in corporations that are critical to build it and sustain it vibrantly for your employees over time. So transferable skills, first of all, because that's always what I wanted to know is what are they going to teach my people? And it did feel like my people because I had to report the results. Because Toastmasters is experiential learning, this is a different concept for us. So I'll touch on those skills, first of all, that we teach. Everything being experiential, under that category comes leadership, management, and operational planning skills. And so some very specific things, leadership skills, we can have the debate. Can you teach it? Can you learn it? Are you born with it? In Toastmasters, we do learn some leadership skills, and that's by actually doing the program, taking on responsible roles and fulfilling them, and learning to work in many different ways. And I'll talk about some of the skills we learn that I think support us as leaders as well as managers. One of the key things that I learned personally in Toastmasters was teamwork. I was a bit of a loner. I knew how to do it. And I thought I had it figured out how to do it best. But in Toastmasters, we do things in teams. Yes, we're team leads, which is a great learning experience, but we're also team players. And I found that this changed the scope of my career. I found that I could support my team players. I knew how to recruit team players. I learned how to delegate to team players and empower them to be successful in their own right while they worked in a team and we worked together. That was a super valuable tool. And I found that in our workplace, that this was often a critical skill for anybody that wanted to progress in their career, that they might be a real great specialist, a great competence person in their own area, but they didn't want to supervise people. They stopped their career at that level because they didn't want to have to deal with giving feedback or building that team and dealing with the issues. Toastmasters helps us overcome those barriers. The second one that I mentioned in there is feedback skills. And again, as supervisors, as employees with employees and parts of team, we have to have good feedback skills. And that happens the moment you start in Toastmasters, that we learn how to give feedback, because we become much greater listeners and we learn how to ask open-ended questions. We're challenged to put our judgments away and listen carefully, and then think things through in our critical thinking skills, and then provide feedback, both positive and tips for improvement, which are critical to make good feedback work in the workplace if you want to keep the team going. Critical thinking, which I've referred to, and critical listening, these were skills that I saw develop from the moment people walked into the Toastmasters program, because right away we're listening and we're thinking about what's happening and how to give feedback and how to be part of that team, how to involve ourselves in the curriculum. And it was so interesting to watch people. And from that grew the confidence and self-esteem to be able to express our opinions, to be able to stand up and deal with those questions in our status meetings at work, to represent our department, even our corporation at times if called upon to do so. So there was a great confidence level. This also traveled on to affect the morale in the organization, because we built interpersonal skills as a fellow participant showed up for those learning sessions. There we were with one another, and we got to know one another as people, not just positions in organizations. So morale changed, and we had better conversations and more curious listening and probing meetings as well. Meeting management, funny that word would come out of my mouth. Meeting management was something that changed a lot of people's perspective in the workplace, because now they weren't afraid to lead a team or call a meeting or set an agenda, because that's what we do every week in Toastmasters. And it's amazing, once you get used to doing these skills, you think everybody has them. But what we know is that these are skills that set us apart in the workplace and really empower our employees as you look around your employees and identify their training needs. Accountability is one of those skills that happens in the Toastmasters teamwork as well. We hold one another accountable. We sign on to roles. We need to show up, or we need to replace ourselves to make sure that the program works. So accountability. And people now call me to be their accountability partner because it's just so natural. I've been doing it for 4 decades in Toastmasters and outside of Toastmasters. In terms of our presentation skills, we do formal presentations, more like what you might hear today. We do informal presentations. We also do impromptu presentations, which gives us that vast opportunity to have all those skills in our toolkit, as well as more casual interpersonal relationships and starting up conversations with people. When we do our impromptu speaking within our program, this really prepares our employees to show up at their very best in their interviews. And this is critical inside a corporation. If you're looking at building your own employees internally, I found that so often over the years that skilled people would get to interview level and then not pass the interview because they couldn't present their ideas. And when they went to Toastmasters, they were used to hearing questions and responding to them each week. And so they got very skilled at doing that and much more able to present their ideas and who they were potentially for that new job. The other skill that I've learned and watch around us is setting and managing goals. Now, I used to assume that everybody did this because this is something that I just naturally fell into. But what I discovered when I grew up and went to work, that people don't do this. They think they do, or they say that they do, but not very many people have written down goals. And in Toastmasters, we do strategic planning for our program, and we work together to meet that end goal. And we celebrate our successes both within the Toastmasters organization as a whole, but also locally. And it gives us an opportunity to work towards those goals. And the leaders within that program are always reporting out to the group how we're going with our goals and what we need to do to get there to meet them. And so it provides that focus. We also work towards a mission, which is very like my world in the corporate world. There's a mission, and everything we do is to deliver on that mission. So those are some high level skills that we learn in Toastmasters. Now, why are we able to learn this, and how do we learn it? We learn it because we meet on a weekly basis, ideally for approximately an hour. If you do your training for your employees during work hours, then we meet during work hours like a regular scheduled work training program. The difference I want to explain, because this is not going in, as I said, to sit for a knowledge transfer. This is a skill development. Thus the weekly meetings, so that your employees arrive and have an opportunity to practice and get feedback and try again next week to keep improving. And it's, so as was mentioned in the introduction, it's a self-paced program. So people can start where whatever their skill level is. There's no prerequisites other than the support of their supervisor and their employer to attend, and the time and the money to go, whether that's provided from the employer. Ideally, it is. As was mentioned, it's experiential learning. So there's always an agenda, and we work through the agenda, developing those various skills, and we get feedback each time we do a skill so that we know how to improve next time we do it. That's also part of the learning, because I would give you feedback and you would give me feedback. And so we learn by doing. The curriculum that Toastmasters International provides is built on adult education principles. It has approximately 300 competencies built into it. So it's a very diverse curriculum and broad. It can meet needs wherever people are starting. We have professional people that are professional speakers that come to Toastmasters. We have people that are working on their second or third language that come to Toastmasters to develop that confidence and skill. We have people that are starting out their careers, people that are in middle management, and people that are in senior management that are looking at perhaps this is a skill that's holding them back to reach where they want to go. As I mentioned, we learn in a team environment. So it's a challenge also to accept feedback, perhaps in the workplace where Martha is your supervisor and you're giving feedback to Martha. You get to learn integrity and respect and whatever other things might come up for you as perhaps confidence and self-esteem as you provide Martha with feedback on how she did her presentation that day. That can be challenging, and not all environments, not all corporations want to build it where all layers of people come together. It depends on what the predominant need is in your organization. I find Toastmasters personally really supportive of those. Developing supervisors and managers is a great place to look at first, because there's a lot of skills that they may need or want to develop, or you might want them to develop. So we have, when the material comes from Toastmasters, it comes online. So you have to look at if you're set up to be able to provide this to your employees. Do they have access to online materials to learn this as they go to their program? Do you have a meeting space for them? What time of day are you setting aside for these people? How are you going to enroll them? Because Toastmasters works on a 6-month period. And so you would want to set up an enrollment period that would probably be renewed every 6 months, so that you could look at who wants to continue, how many people would be replaced in that 6 months. Ideally, we look at approximately 2 years of this experiential learning environment for people to really start to gain that confidence, self-esteem, generally speaking, of course, because of it being so diverse of the attendees. But look at approximately 2 years membership for people to really come out and be different and be transformed. Back to the curriculum, it has evaluation criteria in it already. It already has the learning objectives. So every lesson is set up and the people need to open it up and work the program. There's support locally, and certainly Elizabeth and her team of club growth director and program quality director and all her other people are there to support us as well. There's no pass or fail in Toastmasters, and so people get to stay as long as they're developing and they're getting something out of it as far as we're concerned. And as I said, there will be support for you. When you look at, just one final comment, what I've found absolutely critical is that in the partnership is that Toastmasters, as the provider of a service, and the organization must meet on a regular basis to ensure that there is a sharing of accountability of who's attending and participating in the program after you've paid for them to attend and given them time to do so. So I wish you the very best in your exploration of Toastmasters as a solution to your learning needs in the corporate world. I know for me that many, many times they have been a great solution. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Pat. It just shows how skillful you are to be able to put into a nutshell, 15 minutes at most, an organization like Toastmasters with so many members all over the world. And we're 100 years old as well this year with a gigantic educational program. As I say, hopefully that you will yourselves get the benefit of it. Having listened to Pat, you really summarized it in an amazing way. So at this point, I'd like to introduce you to two speakers just for a couple of moments. Nicola O'Dwyer from the Limerick Lilts. She is operating in the corporate environment, and she's going to share with us her experience of Toastmasters. Over to you, Nicola.
Thank you very much, Mairead. So my name is Nicola O'Dwyer. I am the Vice President of Education for the Limerick Lilts. We're a corporate club based at the BD office in Limerick. We are almost 2 years old now at this stage. We have about 27 members, I believe. Yes, we gained a member since the last few weeks. And we find Toastmasters to be a very encouraging and supportive environment for our members to practice their speaking skills. And to go back to what Pat mentioned about the difference in hierarchy and levels in a corporate Toastmasters club, I'm not a people manager, but as Vice President of Education, I act as maybe a guide or a coach to people higher up in the organization than me, when it comes to their pathways education, helping them navigate the website, choosing what speech they might do next, things like that. So it really does open up leadership opportunities and experience to people who may not have had that in their own career. We also encourage the Pathways education program as something for people to adopt as one of their personal development goals in their yearly performance reviews. And myself, I have a goal this year to achieve level 2 in my pathway. So this is also an opportunity to show management that there is great value in the Pathways education program and that it can really help employees with their career. And we have a good adoption of Pathways in our club. We have about 78% signed up to the Pathways program, and we're aiming to get that to 100% if we can by the end of June. So it's always good to have, high goals, I believe, even if we don't quite make them. So yeah, that's my experience with Toastmasters. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nicola. You're one of our thriving clubs. So thank you for all your hard work to date. Now, we're going to go to one of the stars of the UK and Ireland, one of our best clubs, Microsoft. And to speak on behalf of Microsoft is the immediate past president of the club, Kate McIndoe. Please welcome Kate.
Thank you, Mairead. So I joined Microsoft One Voice Toastmasters in March 2020. It was actually just after the club was chartered and obviously the start of COVID. And I've actually had roles in the committee over the 4 years of the club, including membership, education, president, and I'm currently secretary. And aside from, I suppose, some of the obvious things that you associate with being part of Toastmasters, which are around improving public speaking, there are a couple of areas that I've really seen impact me in my career, and particularly at Microsoft. And the 3 areas that I'll break it down into is, the first is very much reputational. We've built a brand around the club that we are an education element where people can come and learn. We run speechcraft programs. In my role and in my team at work, I talk about, hey, I'm competing in this competition. I give feedback to team members and reports on how to improve their presentation. And that's actually fueling then people to understand and say, right, you're doing really well at that. I'll send some more people into the club. My own personal brand has been very much about helping others learn and develop. And having this association with Toastmasters is helping that brand messaging align across the business. I'd be associated with storytelling, right? And that's some of the feedback that I would get, and people would come and seek feedback from. And I've had lots of opportunities. I've been invited to host fireside chats with executive leaders, from the business. I've been asked to MC events. And that takes me into my next piece, which is connection. I'm not a natural networker. I was new to Ireland. I was new to Microsoft. I had no professional capacity in Ireland. And Toastmasters was a very easy, natural platform and a way to connect with different people. That was meeting through people at the meetings, working on the committee, and that has really helped to expand my connections through the business, which is giving me lots of opportunities. I presented to over 500 people at a global hackathon event last year. I'm currently on screen around the site with some testimonials to learning programs that we're running in AI. And I wouldn't have actually had the confidence to do some of those things, nor the opportunities, if I hadn't really embraced Toastmasters. And lastly, to wrap up, the key piece is Pathways is educational, and it's relevant to the work that you do. I completed my Pathways in effective coaching. That's my passion area. I am a people manager, right? And I was actually able to tie most of the projects in Pathways to my day-to-day job, and that was really helpful. Things like being able to actually use some of the speech structures around leadership and communication helped me to actually talk and explain things to my team, like you're turning up and doing a speech on my leadership style in the Toastmasters forum, going away as a people manager and being able to then articulate that very clearly to my direct reports, the coaching projects, mentoring projects, and things like that. So to sum it up, being part of the corporate club, serving on the committee in particular, has just unlocked so many new opportunities through the connections that I've made, what I've learned, and ultimately building on my professional brand.
Thank you so much, Kate. It sounds like Toastmasters has been exceptionally beneficial for your company and for yourself.
It keeps us busy, Mairead.
Yeah, absolutely, Kate. Yeah, and you're an amazing servant to Toastmasters. You've worked so hard. Thank you so much for all your hard work. Before we get into questions and answers, in my excitement to get the event going, I completely forgot to invite our wonderful district director to introduce the session. So Elizabeth, sincere apologies. Would you like to say a few words, seeing as you work in the corporate world and you are the head honcho after all?
Thank you, Madam Club Group Director. No problem at all. You're doing a fantastic job. Indeed, I work in the corporate world. I've done so for many years. And I have to say, my only regret is not discovering Toastmasters sooner. I think I perhaps would have escalated further, but I'm not doing too badly. What I can say about Toastmasters is it does, for me, is finding that what Madam Past National President mentioned, finding that confidence. As I think Kate just said, I mean, I've been invited to, present to C-suite, interview them. I mean, doing things that I would never have had a chance to do. And in my role on a security team working globally, I have to speak every single day. So being a Toastmaster means that I'm equipped with that confidence and credibility that is needed. And I can tell you, I attribute that 100% to Toastmasters. So I would encourage anyone who's thinking about it, stop hesitating, just do it. Just want to say one last thing, that I'm really happy we're doing this today. It's a very auspicious day. Today is the anniversary of the birthday of our founder, Dr. Ralph Smedley. And here was a man with a vision for people being empowered for public speaking and leadership. And 100 years later, we are sitting in a digital age, and these skills are just as important. And I know there was an article in the New York Times this week, and I read one in Bloomberg that said what the corporate world needs is they need people who can communicate well, who can listen well. And I believe there is no better organization to do this than Toastmasters. So thank you, Madam Club Growth Director. Back to you.
Thank you, Madam DD. Elizabeth works tirelessly for Toastmasters. She doesn't go to sleep, I feel. She's always online and is exceptionally helpful. So I'm so delighted to be working with herself and PQD Danny this year. At this point now, we're going to have a question and answer session. It doesn't necessarily have to be a question or anything like that. If you have any observations or would like to share any of your thoughts, we'll run this session for about 20 minutes. And we should be definitely finished up by about 5 to 1. So if anybody would like to raise their hand to ask a question or make a comment, that would be great.
Kate wrote a notice in the chat, which I think would be worth sharing if you'd like to do that.
Sure. So the skills are more important than ever in a digital world. We have to connect differently and fine-tune our communication and make time count. Very beautifully said, Kate. Thank you so much for adding that. David Sedworth, I see you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I was trying to find a way to raise it digitally, but I didn't know to get it done. Thank you very much for the information. My company was fortunate to have the experience of speech crafters last year, which was great. The board was very impressed with it, and we're hoping to be able to start our own club later this year. Some final discussions going on. So my question is, does anybody have sort of 3 top tips for clubs that are new to start in terms of trying to get off to a good beginning, if you like? And I don't know who's the best person to address that to, but
Well, I would love to if I'll suggest 3 things. From my perspective, in terms of the corporation being successful, because I know Toastmasters will bring a robust curriculum to you, but I believe that internally what we need to do is build accountability with our employees so that they're accountable. Because it's a self-paced program, have your supervisors, managers know that their employees are taking the program, and within their performance development plans, set annual goals of things that they'll achieve. That means like how many activities they'll be involved in. So you can't help but learn if you're involved, but if you just go and sit, you're only getting half of what's being served. So set that within 6 months, they'll deliver, say, 4 formal presentations, which would be one every 6 weeks, which might be reasonable for them. And that each month that they hold a minimum of 1 or 2 other roles within the meetings so that they're actually engaged. So I think that that's the first thing. The other thing that I would suggest for it to work well is to set up a regular meeting, say every 3 months, where the Toastmasters organization, the people that are supporting your program getting going, will actually meet with your people in the corporation to provide an attendance list and a development list in terms of what people are doing. So not only is the accountability between the supervised managers, employees, but it's also there with Toastmasters to report back attendance. And so you've got that connection. That way you can also share with Toastmasters organization feedback. So how's it working from your perspective? So build that relationship robustly, and that will sustain your club over time. The other thing is to never let your club get below 25 members, because when you have 25 participants, you have a dynamic, robust, diverse delivery and opportunity to learn from many people. And I find that that makes it exciting. And if you renew those memberships every 6 months, and if you're down to 23, you fill those other 2 if you've got a wait list. So develop a wait list and manage it on the 6-month basis, because there's money involved, and so transferring money all the time is really a pain. So you want to do that every 6 months. So those are things that I would suggest right off the top, David, but I know Elizabeth could certainly support you in other ideas too, I'm sure. So thank you.
Thank you.
And yes, I would love to. I see some hands up, but David, I've made a note, and we can have, you know, further conversations. CGD, Ray and myself and Danny, we're geared up and ready to speak to you. So if we take some more questions, then I've made a note to get back to you on with some further points.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. I'm conscious of your hand up, but I just would like to read 2 comments in the chat first, please. From Michelle Brennan in the HSE. One of my key observations would be that a Toastmasters corporate program transcends bureaucracy and hierarchy in an organization. All members are on an equal footing regardless of seniority or role. So I smiled when I read it, Michelle, because I set up Bank of Ireland Toastmasters Club, and we had a sponsor from the leadership team. Bearing in mind now, Bank of Ireland is a very large organisation, 10,000 employees. So I had to evaluate the chief financial officer, who'd be second in command. Now, I'd seen him in action before at various things, and because I'm in Toastmasters now, of course, the voices went off in my head saying, if he only did this, if he only did that. So I had buckets of things to say about how I could make recommendations for him to improve his performance, and I was going to say them all, but I just knew it would be totally inappropriate. And because in Toastmasters, we operate within a very strict value mindset. So it's integrity, respect, service, and excellence. So every time we go to do something, if we know it's not acting within those values, we just don't do it. And in fact, I know that you would actually be sanctioned in Toastmasters if you don't adhere to those values. So our values very much align with most corporations. So thanks, Michelle, for reminding me of that terrible moment. The other question in the chat is in relation to fees. So that's also from my colleague Grace in the HSE. So actually, Steve, would you mind if I pass to yourself? Steve Campion is our administration manager this year, if that's okay, not putting you on the spot, Steve.
I would be absolutely delighted, and thank you for all the enthusiasm. It's a great question. So the Toastmasters fees, Toastmasters International, it's a non-profit organization. So all of the money that basically gets paid into Toastmasters is used to improve the education program and improve the experience of our clubs and our members. The actual cost is $60 per 6 months. Pat Johnson explained earlier that we pay our membership fees in 6 monthly periods. Those payments generally happen in March and September for those 6 monthly periods. So it is $60 per 6 months per member. And if you're starting a brand new club, there is also a small chartering fee or a setup fee. If you get in touch with any member of the district leadership team, we can talk about the rest of the details there. I hope that helps, Mairead.
Excellent, Steve. Very succinct and to the point as ever. Thank you so much. So you probably can see the chat. There's some wonderful comments coming through there, which I will leave you to read yourselves. And we'll quickly go on to our next questioner, John Landel from Mattermost. I spoke with John earlier in the year, and he's a very vibrant person, so I'm dying to see what his question is.
So yeah, I mean, I personally know the value of Toastmasters. I went through Toastmasters probably about 10 years ago. And unfortunately, I've been living in parts of the country where there wasn't a local club. I have got some support from our leadership team for Toastmasters, but one key person seems to be of the opinion that we can do all of this ourselves without having to do all of the Toastmasters stuff. So I'd just like some guidance on why it's better to do it through Toastmasters rather than just try and cobble together a club ourselves.
Thank you, John. I might pass this question actually to our program quality director, Danny Banks, who organises the entire education program for the UK and Ireland. Is that okay, Danny?
It is now, Mairead. Yes, thank you. I'm not going to spotlight myself. I don't want to scare people. Why would the thing is that you could do something. You could set up a club and you could meet and what have you. But what they need to think about is the work that involves. Are you, as a company, going to be able to set up an educational program, an online program that covers 300 odd competencies, that offers 6 paths, that offers all this experience? Who's going to do that in the company? Because that, for me, is a key question. It's also, if you are paying somebody else, even if it's only $60, there's a commitment. And there's a commitment from your employees. Would that commitment be there if you just did it yourself? I don't know any company where this is. I mean, probably there are, but I don't know any company where they've gone ahead and just run a club, because it takes so much work. As I say, you're not going to be able to create the committee, the educational program. And often it just descends into a talking club. And that's not what Toastmasters is. So hopefully you get the message today that it's about learning better presentation skills and how to speak better in front of your peers and customers. But it's also about the listening skills, the in networking skills, the leadership skills that Toastmasters can bring. And, you've heard Kate and Nicola talking about how it works in their business. So to your boss, yes, possibly you could run it, but is he going to run it? Who's going to run it? Who's going to develop those educational materials that Toastmasters have been, as you see from the sign behind me, 100 years developing? And you also develop a network, not just in the UK and Ireland, but Toastmasters is across the world. It's in businesses in the US, in South Korea, in wherever. Okay, so I would say that. Think about who's going to do all the hard work of creating the education. It's not just sitting down and talking. It's a lot more than that you get from Toastmasters. I hope that helps.
That is very helpful. It was more or less what I was thinking, but just the way you put it into words there is really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, John and Danny. I think Elizabeth wants to supplement that answer as well.
I did indeed. I wanted to say, John, that Toastmasters is all about learning by doing. And we've got to get to do the right thing. So things like giving evaluation, which I believe is one of the most precious things about Toastmasters. It's not something you can just do. I mean, you can sit together, we can give some basic things about improving, but evaluation requires skill. And as you transfer those skills, it gets stronger and stronger. So yes, one can set up a club, and ostensibly it is okay. But I think some of the fundamentals you need to get, if you really want to have the Toastmasters vision and to live that, I think one does need a Toastmasters club. And there'd be plenty of help to help there. So if you want us to build the collaboration, the cooperation, and the connection, those are the 3 things you're building, and the confidence that requires, I would say, some of the Toastmasters key skills. Thank you, Madam CGD.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And just to add to that, I see Kate McIndoe has made an excellent comment about the way the program stretches you. When you first join Toastmasters, your first speech is an icebreaker. It's just a very simple little speech about yourself. But when you get up the ladder, you can do anything from being on television, being on the radio, doing a podcast, speaking at a conference in front of 1,000 people. It just gives you the stretch to do it. But by the time you get to that point, you have the confidence and the skill set to do it. So I guess even when I look at myself, when I first joined in 2008, I can't believe I'm sitting here today as a director. Like I just can't believe it. And I've spoken in front of very large crowds. And now, before I would have said, oh, I'm so nervous. Whereas now I'm just excited. And like that is the joy of Toastmasters. It gives you the confidence and the excitement to do things there's no way you would do without that skill set. So I see two more people want to supplement the answer. And Victoria, then we'll go to you for the final question. So may I call on Steve, please?
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to add to that and actually raise a question as part of it. I think one of the other benefits of the Toastmasters organization is the fact that it is an organization, rather than just having a group within your own company that you can get your books, you can get your training, you can bring external trainers in to deliver it just for you. One of the things that I enjoy is the fact that you've got this entire network of 300,000 people around the world who have gone through similar experiences, are going through similar experiences. And one of the things I like to do when I've traveled on business, is I'll go to a Toastmasters club, because suddenly I know I've got a community there and other people with similar interests. This brings me on to my question, which I would like to ask of anyone here, is I think we've heard from people who've have the benefit of being members of a Toastmasters club or a corporate club that's got started. And we've seen some comments from people about how they benefited from the help and support of other people who are volunteering to help them get started. How can we encourage members of our corporate clubs in particular to get more involved in area and division activities, basically getting involved in leadership activities within Toastmasters outside of their own club that helps them grow and helps the organization as well? And I'm not just saying that because I've got several of my colleagues from my corporate club on the call here. I'd love to hear any answers on that.
Yeah, so just to explain to people who are non-Toastmasters members, there's a whole structure in Toastmasters. You start at the club level where you have a program in your organization. Then there's an area level where somebody looks after 4 clubs, division level where somebody looks after about 12 clubs. Then you have directors, which would be Elizabeth, Danny, and myself, and we look after countries. And then it goes up and up and up until you get to Pat's stage, which we all aspire to, but probably unfortunately may not reach, of international president, where you're looking after the whole world. So Steve, I do appreciate your question, but I'm just conscious we have about 4 minutes left, and I see Pat and Victoria would like to speak as well, if you don't mind. Pat, can I come to you? You might want to supplement that answer as well.
Just very quickly, I wanted to say about why not build it yourself. I've built programs inside of corporations, and I also was instrumental in working with the building of Toastmasters Pathways program. And it took us a number of years to build that program, even when we had a basis of an existing program that we were revising. So Toastmasters is like a plug and play. You buy it, it comes in, it's all there. All your lesson plans are there, all your evaluation plans are there, and you have a structured path that goes, as was mentioned, all the way up to international if people want to. So I strongly suggest and recommend that you look at the curriculum and how it's built with all the structures now and all the support mechanisms there before you decide to build it. It won't be a savings, time or money wise, if you're going to build one anywhere near what's been built over the past 100 years. I do, along with the other question of, oh, now I've lost my thoughts. I won't take any time. I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Pat.
I was going to answer the other question as well, but I forgot what it was.
Amazing. So we have about 3 minutes left now before we get to the final part of our program. So we'll hear from Victoria. I'm sure she's a super question as usual. She works in SAP. which I'm actually an SAP trainer in the HSE. So I feel a particular affinity with Victoria.
And
So
yes,
would you like to go ahead, Victoria?
thank you so much. And I'm involved in a Toastmasters club myself, but we're looking to establish one at work. One of the key things in a digital organization is about enhancing the presentation skills and public speaking skills, both in person but also across in such through digital mechanisms. But one of the points that we have met with our senior leadership team was to try and promote in-person events as a priority, because we are looking to bring people back together in the office. And I wondered, from the others in the room and from your experience, have you encountered corporate clubs that only meet in person, or do they tend to be hybrid?
If you don't mind, I might ask Kate, if you don't mind, Kate, to answer that, because Microsoft have an excellent system in place. Would that be okay, Kate?
Yeah, it's something that we, as we kind of came back from online and then went back into person, was something we debated as well. And we've elected to remain fully hybrid. So we do have people that'll be on site to set up the room, and we get to use some of our great spaces that we have. Like, we've got some wonderful conference rooms and things on site. I would say the people that are turning up and in person probably are getting more of the connection aspects. And probably take more advantage of the program, but particularly if people are just wanting to check it out, or like myself, I can be traveling, I still want to go and experience the meeting, I want to connect with the members, having that virtual option is there. And we've just had to fine tune the inclusion element, but it still works really well from our perspective. We occasionally might have an evening event, but we treat that as something separate, right? Like, come and connect on this, let's have a celebration, but we run hybrid as standard.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks very much, Kate. Victoria, I hope that helps with your question, but if it doesn't, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me, and we can have a further chat. So at this point, we've come to the very end of our event, and I'm going to hand over to Danny Banks, who is going to close our event today. And a big thank you to everyone for attending. So Danny, over to you.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. And there's a lot of people to thank for this. Thanks, Mairead, for setting this up and working so hard to make this happen. And thank you to all of you for giving up your lunch times to come and find out more about Toastmasters. It's really heartening to see that there is that interest. And I hope that you have gained from today an understanding what Toastmasters is about, what it can do for your companies, what it can do for you. So I'm really pleased that you've been able to come and give up your lunchtime. So thank you for that. I'd like to especially thank our presenter, Pat Johnson, immediate past international president, Pat Johnson. What wasn't said at the beginning is that Pat's in Vancouver, and it's 2 o'clock, I believe, in the morning, or 3 o'clock in the morning there. So she's given up some of her sleep to come and speak to us. But this is such an important issue that we need somebody like Pat, who has got so much experience both within Toastmasters and within the business world, because she can look at both sides and see what the corporate world needs and how Toastmasters can offer that. So I'm always pleased to hear Pat when she's spoken on so many diverse topics. I've read a book. I'm not selling the book, but it is well worth reading if you want to set up a club. That was the other thing, you know, somebody asked, what would you do to set up a club? Well, I'd go and have a look at Pat's book and see how it's done and get a lot of ideas from that. And I'd also like to thank Nicola and Kate for giving up their time to come and speak to us. And I know they've benefited from Toastmasters and are in that position to do that. So thank you to them. And also Matty, doing the time in the background. Thank you, Matty. So I hope you've all gained something from it. I hope you all will go back to your organizations and really say, we need this now. I did put in the chat some flyers and information sheets from Toastmasters International that would be useful. I don't know whether that's the best thing to do, so we can email those out to you. I'll email those out. Don't worry, Mairead, I know you're busy today. I can do that. So once again, thank you everybody for coming, and I look forward to seeing you at our area, division and district events as a member of a corporate Toastmasters club. So thank you very much for attending. You've probably got about 5 minutes left of lunch left if you have an hour. And thank you and see you soon.
Thank you.
Please get me off this spotlight.
And you,
Thanks, everyone,
senior
for your
Toastmaster.
time.
Thank you.
I don't want to frighten any children that might be in the background.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
you.
Victoria,
Thank you,
for
everyone.
coming
Yeah.
along.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Elizabeth, you want to make me
Bye.
host if you've got to rush off?
Yes.
I was going to say perhaps stop recording as well. Thank you.
Yes.
This was
Oh,
very informative. I really appreciated and enjoyed jumping along across the pond virtually.